Hello, and grace and peace to us all. I am Catherine Myrie, and I welcome you back to True Matters of the Heart. Again, this is the call that I finally answered to share with you the inspirations that I receive. Inspirations that are meant to encourage us and to challenge us, but more importantly, to position us to be transformed more into the men and women that God has called and predestined us to be. While I certainly understand we all appreciate and welcome messages that inspire us, motivate us, and uplift us in some way, we also know that the word is useful for correcting us, for cutting, to prune us, that our roots grow deeper, that we be used at a higher level to have a greater impact for the kingdom. I have finally come to realize and embrace that that's just part of my call. And I know that everything I say might not feel good initially, but I also know it is for our good in the long run. So please, I pray that you would pray for me, pray with me, that I get out of God's way, that He has His way in my life. I truly want to be used by Him, not my agenda, Lord, but yours. And so the last time we was together, I shared with you that way back in March, God had given me a message entitled God's Address to the Nation. I'd like to present that to you today in its entirety. And within that message, I know everything I say is not for everybody, but I also know there is something for everyone. As I was preparing to finally be obedient in bringing this message to you, I asked the Lord, how should I present this information? Lord, this is hard. I don't want to do this. I'm going to keep that real. But I finally said, okay, Lord, use me and have your way. And as I was, again, seeking just what is it, Lord, that you want me to share and how do you want me to present it, I realized in that moment that He had given it to me in 3 parts. Part 1 denotes the problem. Part 2 moves us through reflections. And part 3 is our call to action. So I'm going to present it to you just like I received it in those 3 parts. And I'll pause after each one to share with you further insight or perspective or ask a question. I ask that you engage me for a while, that you certainly pray with me again and for me. And I also hope that you get something out of each section that will bless your life as you continue forward in this upcoming new year. God has so much more in store for us. We want Him to use us at a higher level. We want more of what He has predestined for us. Yes, we want to be a blessing and receive the blessing. So, Lord, help us. We need more of you. So with all that, I'll present to you now part 1 of God's address to the nation. All right, here we are at part 1 of God's address to the nation. And I will present it to you in its entirety as I received it that day, again, March 29th. On this day, I was standing just trying to reflect on a time such as now. This pandemic had just recently hit, y'all, and you know it was heavy. It was heavy, and it was weighing heavy in my soul. And on this day, I was standing in the mirror, just reflecting on a time such as now. And as I stood there, I asked the Lord, what matter of spiritual warfare is this? Just trying to understand what was really going on. And then suddenly I found myself bent over, willing unto God. It was as though my mind was seized to comprehend that this was not spiritual warfare as we understood warfare to be. Oh no, it had amped up to a whole nother level. God was doing something altogether different, altogether new. He was doing something to reset this atmosphere and to reclaim his right position. We had ignored the handwriting on the wall. God had been beckoning us for quite some time, yet we settled ourselves at our place of contentment, our place of acceptance of God in our lives. We had ignored the urgency call that had been bellowing through the land throughout the last decade. Yeah, we know that during the last 10 years, that was an all out assault on God and in the matters of God. Nonetheless, we who proclaim to be in the army of God either abandoned our posts or failed to utilize the full weaponry of God. We reverted to a slumber, or should I just say a sleep mode, that allowed the enemy to infiltrate our camps and plunder our goods. To make that plain, we gave way for the enemy to move far beyond the borders to enslave our children, severed our marriages and relationships, set bitterness up in our hearts and unforgiveness. He stole our dreams and even our identity. Wow. We allowed him to wither us down to a mere fragment of what God intended us to be. This time of spiritual warfare has reached another level. A level unlike anything we've ever seen before. And its attention was to get our attention and to produce more of God's power to the earth through us, his people on earth. Listen, we know that God will not be reduced to less than who he is, for we have settled for way too little of God and not allow his full majesty to really rule our hearts. We have been infected by the cares of this world instead of the heart of God. So therein lies the problem. We have been infected by the cares of this world instead of the heart of God. So I'm going to pause for a moment. For that is part one, the problem. And I just want to take a moment and reflect on a few of the points that I mentioned, just to expound upon them a little more or to ask a question or two. When we talk about enslaved our children, I'm really talking about the enemy has trapped their minds, entangled their minds. And we know our children have been hopeless for a long time, not just during this year pandemic. Let me share a little statistic with you. Since 2010 to 2019, depression, serious depression, has increased over 65% in our children between the age of 10 and 24. And that percentage is even higher in our babies that's younger than 10 years old. What is really going on? And while I know we love our children, Lord, we love our children, and we certainly want the best for them, we are not aware as to how the enemy has trapped and ensnared them. We are not aware as to what's really going on with our kids. Lord, we need your help. We need your help to save our babies. And when I talk about our marriages, as the enemy has severed our marriages, come on, let's keep it real. Our marriages within the kingdom are succumbing to divorce at a higher rate or the same rate as those that's in the world that don't even know God. What is really going on? And while we know the enemy has always hated marriage because marriage is near and dear to God's heart and has the ability to produce much in the land, it is the pillar of the community. We know the enemy has set out to tear marriages down in the first place, but God, you have given us the power and authority to walk in victory in every area of our lives. So what's really going on? You say in your word that if we think better of each other, not of ourselves, but of the other person first. So there's something we're missing. And lastly, what's happening with our identity? Do we really know who we are? I know. Perhaps I don't and still don't, but I'm trying to get better understanding. Lord, I want to know who I am, that I walk in the fullness of the dominion and authority that you have given me, that you've given each one of us. And when we come to know our real identity, we'll save our children. We'll restore our marriages. We'll get back our dreams, our hope. Lord, we will be a powerful force in the earth. that we will be seen by all to draw men unto you. Lord, I thank you. Because even though that was heavy, that was a heavy piece I shared, there is still hope. All is not lost. God is still sitting high on the throne with all power in his hand, and he still desires to bless us beyond our wildest imagination, where we don't have room enough to receive. It is time for us to get real. It is time for us to have these conversations that don't feel good but are for our good in the long run. It is time for us to move beyond our routines, our denial, and our masquerade. Lord, we want more. And if we don't get real and start addressing what's really happening within our homes or our communities, then nothing will change with this new year other than the year. Lord, we want more. We want more of your power at work in our lives. We want to be the men and women that you have called and predestined us to be. And so we'll look now to part two, the reflections. Because each of us need to take a moment just to reflect, because it's personal. And so, Lord, have your way.
Catherine Myrie launched Higher Heights Counseling Services, LLC, in 2016. Since its conception, she has aspired to provide a level of therapeutic services that would permanently change lives and positively impact individuals, families, and communities. She has always had a heart for young ladies and women and has dedicated most of her focus on developing workshops, providing training and counseling to assist those she serves not only to cope but heal from current circumstances, past trauma, depression, and anxiety. Her goal is to position her clients and realize and release their full potential. Catherine has assisted many individuals, couples, and families transform, transcend, and thrive in life. She is committed to assisting others overcome and reach new levels in life. She believes settling for less because of status or condition should never be the final option. If you're in need of counseling services, visit Higher Heights Counseling Services, LLC at www.higherheightscounseling.com.